Hey Brad, it's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
Beautiful, and thank you for being here. I love that. Okay, Brad, I am quite excited to have Brad on the show for some reasons. Alright, firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking, because I believe in order to transition from a chaotic or terrible situation and move all the way to a beautiful one, it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. And you see, Brad, ever since I discovered that in the Hebrew, knowledge means light and darkness means ignorance. I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I do not want to remain in the dark. And that's why I was able to recognize the fact that you've gotten some amazing books on your shelf. I love folks who seek knowledge because by seeking knowledge, we tend to help the world and make it a better place. The second reason why I'm excited to have Brad on the show is for the sake of the listeners. You know, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. Lots of information's out there. So these folks trust me for quality informations. And that's why when I was browsing through your profile, I was excited about what I saw because I believe myself and my audience are definitely going to learn one or two things from you. So to get started, Brad, let's begin first with your introduction. Talk to us about your journey, personal or professional journey, or the both. Let us know how you got
Yes.
here. Yeah, then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Brad, over to
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, I started a real estate house flipping company where I buy houses, fix them up, and resell them back in 2003. And I've gotten that company to where it runs mostly without me. And about 3.5 years ago, trying to get my son for his help for anxiety, I was on a Zoom call, sorry. And this lady, this performance coach was like, "You have a tick." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "You blink like crazy when you talk about your childhood. You may have some unresolved childhood stress that's actually affecting your son's anxiety." And I was like, "Me? No way." Okay. She was like, I was like, "Maybe you're right." And so she offered to work with me. And so I came out and worked with her and her ex Navy SEAL husband. And in the course of 3 hours, my entire life changed profoundly. And I came back from that trip and I looked around at everyone who was suffering and struggling. And I said to myself, wow, they're struggling and suffering for the same reason that I was. And that was the stories and the meanings that we made up in childhood. So, Eliza, this is probably the most important part of the podcast, what I'm going to say here. Every negative behavior that you have, drinking too much, shutting down when your spouse comes to you, depression, anxiety, working too much, racing mind, not sleeping. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's not your fault. It's your mind's perceived solution to something that it thinks is worse over here. But when you do the work and you go deep into your subconscious mind, you'll realize that this thing that it's running from is nothing more than an untruth that was formed in childhood to give meaning to an event where you were treated poorly or your needs weren't met or it was stressful. So what do is we go and we show the brain that number one, it's an untruth, and we show that by showing the brain times in its life where it is proven to be untrue. And when you do that, you rewrite the neural pathway that's holding those untrue negative emotions. And then guess what happens to the negative behavior? It vanishes immediately and it's gone forever. This, unfortunately, is being taught by less than 1% of probably less than like 1/100th of a percent of psychologists and therapists and life coaches because they just don't know it. Too many of them focus on the conscious mind. Oh, you have anxiety. Let's talk about breathing differently. Let's give you some meditation exercises. But unless you get to the source of the issue, nothing really is going to change and have lasting change. So that's what I found in the last 3.5 years. And my life changed so profoundly that I started to coach others in getting rid of their limiting beliefs that are hidden in their subconscious mind that's keeping them from a life of abundance, both personally and professionally.
Amazing. And that makes you a very, very important asset to this planet because folks who are helping other people are great people. And I love that. And that part where you mentioned that you work with the coach and she discovered something, and that made me remember what a particular psychologist said as to there are some certain behaviors that we portray at times that ain't our fault, that we probably got them from, she used the word genes or something. So that's going to lead to the very first question, all right? Why is it that someone's behavior isn't necessarily their fault? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to touch on what you said the psychologist said, because I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that we inherit alcoholism or depression or anxiety. The science has proven that's not true. Eliza, what we inherit is the associated trauma from those things. If your father or mother is an alcoholic, you don't get the alcoholic gene. There's no such thing. But if you're the child of an alcoholic, you are 100% going to get the trauma from them, because you cannot be an addict and not create trauma in your family's life. So your question was, why is it not someone's fault? Well, for 47 years, I had 2 failed marriages. I had kids with behavioral problems. I used weed and alcohol on a regular basis. I lost $9 million making 5 business mistakes. I don't think that was my fault, because when I look back, it was my mind just running from this underlying untruth that I wasn't enough. And so it was like part of my survival. I had to show the world that I was enough. And how was I going to do it? I was going to do it by making a ton of money. I was going to do it by smoking weed and drinking so I could be comfortable to have conversations to get people to like me. So it's not your fault. But at the point where you have awareness, and if you're listening to this podcast, now you have awareness, it is kind of your responsibility to do something. Because if you have kids with behavioral issues, if your marriage sucks, if your business sucks, I can promise you that at the root of it is a thinking problem. And this very thinking problem that we've been talking about these last 10 minutes, it's just your mind running from something that it thinks is worse. So yeah, if you like this type of content, I have a podcast called How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs, where I go way more in depth in it. So check that out if you like this stuff.
Amazing. Getting to listen to you speak shows how passionate you are about this topic, and that's a good one. So let us talk about bad habit, all right? What is the first step to stop a bad habit?
It's figuring out what's driving the bad habit. Again, none of us were born with bad habits. We're doing those things because we think they are protecting us from something that is really bad, but it's not really bad. It's just an untruth. You mentioned a second ago how you can feel my passion. When I get text like I got a couple months ago from a client that said, "Thank you for changing my life and my family's life," man, that is way better than any 6-figure real estate deal that I ever did, because now I know that I'm changing their whole family for generations to come.
Ooh, I got that. Looking at it from generational lens, that's powerful. And that's why it's so important for us to stand up to help others, by offering our solutions to them. I got that. So let us talk about relationships, all right? What is the biggest problem in relationships?
Oh man, what a great question. The biggest problem in relationships is never the actual relationship itself. It's the relationship that each individual has with themselves. That is the problem in a relationship. So if you're in a bad relationship, if you've gone from one bad relationship to the next, it's most likely from limiting beliefs that are buried in your subconscious mind, the thing that we say we're running from. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I wonder if I have those same limiting beliefs that are destroying or hampering or ruining my relationships, are messing up my health, my kids, you can find out by going to my website, unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz. Take a 3-minute self-love quiz. Eliza, you should go take it too. A 3-minute self-love quiz. It's only 12 questions. And it will tell you your level of self-love. If you have lack of self-love, if you have mild self-love, that is an indication that you have some of this programming from childhood that's affecting you. So don't get the results and be like, oh, woe is me, I have no self love. Because almost every client that I work with over the course of the 5-week program goes from lack of self love to extreme self love. And that's when everything changes. That is the only way you truly get freedom. Having self love and having self compassion is the only way you get self freedom or freedom in this world. It's not from money. It's not from women. It's not from men. It's not from cars, boats, yacht, whatever it is. Being on TV, everything you've ever needed to be happy is inside of you right now. You just have layers up on that heart because of pain that you went through likely decades ago.
I got that. I got that. Okay, so what can I want you to talk more on this, all right? What do you think people can do if they feel stuck in the past? Like, I want you to dive more on that.
Yeah. And let me say something about the relationships and then I'll answer that one. We often match to our level of trauma. So if you see people in abusive relationships as adults, good chance that they were in abusive relationships as a child, like their parents were abusive or whatever. And you may be like, well, who wants that? Well, no one on a conscious level wants it, but your subconscious mind's role is to keep you alive. It kept you alive through the abuse, through the violence as a child. So it's like, I'm going to recreate this same exact environment because I don't care if you're happy or sad, it kept you alive. So I think that's a real important distinction to make in terms of relationships. So we often, if we lack self-love, we're going to go find someone who lacks self-love. So if you're looking at your spouse or your significant other or your companion and you're like, we have a real problem, it's her problem or it's his problem. No, it's not. It's the problem you have with the relationship you have with yourself and your partner. If you think you're just going to get rid of them and go find someone different, you're not. You're going to likely find the same exact person. That's how it works. So your question, I forgot your question. Can you ask me the question again?
Yeah, what people can do if they feel stuck in their past?
So if they feel stuck in their past, that means that it's generating some type of negative behavior, as you said, a bad habit, right? So first they want to identify, what is it that I don't want? I'm tired of having no money. I'm tired of being 60 pounds overweight. I'm tired of being in a bad relationship. I'm tired of being depressed or anxious. So now you've identified, I have a problem. I have an issue that I want to overcome. Now let's go figure out where that started, because nobody on this planet was born with eating problems, addiction problems, drinking problems, overworking, sleeping issues. They were all learned. So therefore we can unlearn them. So we're just going to say, okay, use anxiety or a racing mind. Okay, let's go back. Let's ask your subconscious mind. We're going to get you in a deeply relaxed state. And we're going to say, Eliza, you have this anxiety. Let's go to a time, a place, an event, all that has to do with this anxiety. And you're going to be in a deeply relaxed state, which means you're going to be really hooked in your subconscious brain. And you're going to say, I'm making this up, well, when I was 5 years old, my father beat me because I spilled milk. Or my father was never at my baseball games, or my father and mother hit each other, or whatever it is, your subconscious brain is going to go to that scene, and then you're going to process that scene. And you're going to be like, I would be like, well, what's the meaning you came from that? Well, the meaning that I came from that is that my dad hit me for spilling milk, and I had no idea. It came out of nowhere. So what did that teach me? It taught me that the world was a very unsafe place and that I better be on the lookout constantly because I might get hit again. And then we'd walk through and we'd be like, well, when's the last time you've been hit? Your subconscious brain doesn't know the difference between time. So we would do the healing to bring that little boy into your adult world and show that little boy that now you create your own safety and protection. So you don't ever have to worry about dad hitting you when you spill milk. So that's it. It's every single thing is the same exact case. You have something negative. It's not your fault. There's something underlying that's driving it. If you just focus on, breathing techniques or the symptoms, it will never be healed. You just have to go to the cause of it and figure out what started it so that you can overwrite that neural pathway in your brain so that the negative behavior goes away.
Amazing. That's actually a distinctive approach. I've not heard of such approach before, and I love that. That's a good one. So we have just one more to go. For someone who is struggling with self-doubt, he's got those amazing ideas, but things like, who am I to put this out there? Will people even want to give me attention? Can this even solve any problem? What do I know? So how can these folks now, how can they overcome or, get free from self-doubt? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same exact answer for everything I just said. So let's give a different example as a child. As a child, the child tried to do something in the house and they failed, and they were ridiculed and made fun of it, made fun of for it. So what was their emotional learning when they were 6 years old? If you try something and fail, you may be made fun of by the parents. And remember, the parents are the tribe leaders. Our brains have been on this planet for 6 million years, and for almost all of that, we've lived in tribes. So if you affected a tribe member negatively, what would happen? You would get kicked out of the tribe. What would happen when you got kicked out of the tribe? You would die. You would die. So if you did something and you failed and you're made fun of, not your conscious brain, but your primitive brain would be like, well, we can't upset mommy or daddy anymore. So as an adult, you're stuck again because the subconscious mind doesn't know time. So it's not the adult that's stuck and afraid to take on that idea and have self-doubt. It's the little boy. So we show that little boy that they don't have to report to their parents and they don't need their parents to survive. And then that weight gets lifted. The neural reprogramming goes over because it's just an untruth. The untruth is, if I fail, people won't love me and then I'll die. Well, if you fail, I failed at a lot of things in my life. I'm still talking to you. I'm not dead. So that's how you overcome lack of self-belief. The lack of self-belief, Eliza, is the same exact negative behavior, or as you said, poor habits, right? So what we would do is we would just do that introspection. We get you in a deeply, relaxed state. And we'd be like, what's the source of this? And your subconscious mind would literally go find it. And then we rewrite the neural pathways. It's quite incredible. My passion is because it doesn't require drugs and it doesn't require decades of work. It's a proven system that I've put together from some of the best people in the world. And I've seen it work with me. I've seen it work with my partner. I've seen it work with 100 clients. I've seen my mentors, it work with thousands of their clients. And so I'm just on a mission to spread this word to 1 million people. They don't need to do what Western medicine does, which is diagnose you, label you, and then give you drugs. It's just not needed.
I got that. You see, I think many parents need to get exposed to this amazing approach, because since everything all banks on the childhood and how we live when we're younger, then that means parents need to be very, very careful now to train their kids, the words to say, because all of those things will still have effect when they become adult. Wow,
Yeah,
I got that.
Eliza, the greatest gift that any parent can give their child is to teach them how to break the multi-generational curse. How do they do that? They teach them how to love themselves unconditionally. How can a parent teach a child how to love themselves unconditionally if the parent doesn't love themselves unconditionally? So I tell all the young people that I hear getting married, I go, number one, before you get married, you may want to take my self-love quiz and see where you stand, because if you lack self-love, you're likely going to go marry someone with lack of self-love. But say you do, say you make that mistake or you don't hear about me until after you're married. Don't bring children into this world if you and your partner lack self-love. Because if you lack self-love, there's no chance in the world that kid is going to have extreme self-love. That kid's going to lack self-love, because how in the world can they learn how to love themselves unconditionally if their two parents don't? They can't. So you brought the child into the world. The child didn't ask to be brought into the world. So I believe you have an obligation to give that child the best life that you can. And how do you do that? You simply teach them how to love themselves unconditionally. But you can't do that until you do it yourself.
Yourself, because you cannot give what you don't have. I got that. I got that. Amazing, Brad. Beautiful. Okay, Brad.
Thank
So, yeah, to bring this to an end, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those ones who would like to reach out to you, learn more about what you're doing, you said some amazing stuff since you started talking, and it resonated and they would love to learn more, how can that be possible?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that if you're suffering or struggling, number one, it's not your fault. And number two, you're probably a lot closer to where you want to be than you think you are. You are not a mistake. You are actually just the opposite. You're a miracle. The fact that the sperm and the egg came together, it's a complete miracle. So you were put here for a reason, and you are here for a reason. If you're struggling or suffering, it's not your fault. And there is a better way. There is a way to heal, and it can be done in hours. Whether you work with me or someone else, just know that you were not put on this earth to suffer and struggle. You were put on this earth to live an abundant life full of love and full of deeply connected relationships. So if I can be that person to help you, you can find me at unlocklimitlessyou.com/Brad. It has all my social media accounts. It has the podcast I mentioned. It has the self-love quiz. It even has my cell phone number. If you're really struggling and you need help, no strings attached, no charges, pick up the phone and call me. If I can't help you, I will certainly refer you to someone who can.
Amazing. I love that. So that's going to be the end of the show, Brad. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing this amazing stuff with us. I truly learned a series of things from you. Thank you, man.
Thank you, brother.